Hello, welcome. Caitlin, can we just do a check on sound? Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. How are you this fine Friday morning? I'm back in Cardiff. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a fantastic day or evening if you're into the night, wherever you are. As always, my name is Nicola Rowlett-Jones and I'm your host today. I'm just going to pad for a couple of minutes because it takes some time for people to come in. So we just talk a little bit about various things that are going on, just to get us used to the technology, and also to let people arrive for a sort of an 8:31 start. That's UK time. It's very crisp and fresh here. As many of you know, if you've been listening all week, I was in France on Monday and Tuesday. I was in Cardiff on Wednesday. I went to Stuttgart yesterday with Sarah. Sarah and I were working together in Stuttgart yesterday, and I'm back in Cardiff. I can't tell you, the 24 hours of flying, 4 planes, 24 hours. It was a bit tiring. I don't normally get tired with traveling, but actually I'm a bit tired today. So forgive me if I trip over my words. I hope I'm not going to do that too much. Whilst we're waiting for everybody to come in, hello to everybody. Simon, Mark, Imogen, Bijesh, Sarah, lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for joining us. If you've not been on LinkedIn Live before, it's really interesting. You can interact with the conversation, just like Caitlin's doing there with her thumb up. You'll see a little reaction button at the bottom. You can also ask questions. Thank you, Sarah. Very, very well demonstrated there with a thumbs up. Everybody, well done. Love hearts, loving that. You can also actually, at given times, ask questions, and there's a way of doing that there. What happens if you put your hand up to ask a question? It shows up on my system, and I can invite you to speak. Now, I won't just do that willy-nilly. I will do that probably maybe in the middle of the conversation when there's an actual pause, and definitely at the end. So as we're speaking this morning, Sarah and I are going to be talking about conscious leadership and leadership. Just have a think about maybe some of the questions you might want to ask, and we'll get on to asking those during the session. But as I say, I'm just padding at the moment. For those of you that have just arrived, I always like to give people a couple of minutes just to get into the session. We've had a fantastic week. What a week. The Institute of Leadership and Management have hosted ILW 23, which is International Leadership 2023. And I tell you what, the events program has been fantastic. I've been to a couple of sessions. I hope you've been to some of the sessions, but I feel very honoured to have had some fantastic speakers. And we're not finished yet, but we've had some fantastic speakers this week. So on Monday, I gave you a rundown of what was happening this week. John Williams was kicking off the session on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. He's going to close the week later on today. Then on Tuesday, we spoke to the Right Honourable Patricia Kenneth Devine, and she is the founder of the Institute of Protocol and Diplomacy, and she was talking about international leadership, which is great, how diplomacy and leadership has to go across borders, and I thought that was really fascinating. And on Wednesday, Emrys Green, he's the chair of the Institute of Leadership and Management. For those of you that don't know, I'm the deputy chair, so Emrys and I are all colleagues, and we basically had a really good chat about young leadership and the impact that young leaders can have on us in our society and in our businesses and us as a human race. And then today, Sarah, we had a day off yesterday because we were facilitating a female conscious leadership program, Sarah and I, and then today we've got Sarah. So let me formally start this session today. Thank you ever so much for coming to listen to us this morning. As I said, my name is Nicola Rowlett-Jones. I run a business consultancy group called the Nicola Rowlett Group. I'm an executive coach, a non-exec director of Swim Wales, which is the national governing body for swimming. I'm a school governor in my local region here in Cardiff, and I'm also a trustee and the deputy chair of the Institute of Leadership and Management. And I suppose you could say that's my pet passion. And I thought we'd start today off with a question. You see, a quote. You see, I run a professional business book club. It's completely free to attend. So if you like reading books, if you're into personal development, then please give me a message. Caitlin will respond and we'll tell you all about our next book. Our next book is going to be Legacy by James Kerr, which is the story of the All Blacks rugby team and how they teach us to be incredible in business life. And I've just started reading it. And the first quote on one of the first pages, page 8, really resonates with today's subject. And it's all about the Lombardini method. And he was a visionary American football coach. And he believed that you begin leadership with a simple statement, and that is, only by knowing yourself can you become an effective leader. Only by knowing yourself can you become an effective leader. So let's just have that resonate while we start our conversation with Sera. So let me introduce Sera formally. Sera's been a founder. She's set up a number of businesses. She's exited from a successful startup, and she's worked with venture builders, business mentors, advising high growth companies and teams on resilience and sustainable scaling. I mean, that doesn't say very much in terms of why Sera is very different, but her diverse range of sectors, fintech, cybersecurity, professional services, consumer goods, means she's become an expert across leadership. But she's passionate about conscious leadership, and she helps teams, individuals implement effective conscious leadership strategies and practices. In doing that over the past few years, she's founded Leap Insights GmbH, a German company that connects people to their purpose, values, driving the organizations to be successful and to transform themselves to high performance. So she's experienced. She's an engaged presenter. As I said, Sera and I did a whole day's workshop yesterday on conscious leadership. It was a pleasure working with her. And I'm just going to ask her to start, Sera, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, to start by telling us what leadership means to her. So Sera, go ahead. Tell me what leadership means to you.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you so much, Nicola, for having me today. So leadership to me is actually the ability to inspire, to influence, and guide others towards a common goal or vision. And effective leaders are able to build trust, respect among their peers, create a shared sense of purpose, and inspire others to work towards achieving goals. So they also need to be able to adapt to changing circumstances and remain focused on the bigger picture while embodying their own values and the company values as well.
Okay, so fantastic. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Of course, I'm sure many people on this audio would agree. How does conscious leadership fit into that, or what is conscious leadership, or what part is conscious in that leadership description? Tell me how that fits together.
Yeah, so conscious leadership, in other words, for me, is actually the new paradigm of leadership, and it focuses on more collaborative, inclusive, and empowering approaches. And leaders today are recognizing that traditional authoritarian styles of leadership are not as effective as they once were. And another aspect of the new paradigm of leadership is a great focus on ethics and social responsibility. So leaders today, they're expected to take into account the impact of their decisions in society and the environment, and to act in ways that are ethical, sustainable, and socially responsible. So let's face it, the old paradigm of leadership is actually failing. And why is it failing? Not only because the technology, politics, and what we see on the outside is rapidly changing, but because we are also changing on the inside. And it's related to what you said in the beginning, Nicola, as well, about, it's all about self development. And what does changing on the inside mean is that, for me, how I conceptualize it is that we as humans are expanding our consciousness. And it's not, a theory, but a fact. And understanding our consciousness, our purpose in life, the essence of things is the utmost human quest. And raising consciousness and new ways of leading are actually closely related concepts. So raising consciousness involves increasing one's awareness and understanding of oneself, others, and also the world around them. And when leaders, raise their consciousness, they are able to become more aware of their own biases, their own assumptions, their own limitations, as well as the needs and perspectives of their team members and the society as a whole. So it also, comes down to the most basic facts that we're all humans, and in our own journeys, trying to figure out our purpose in life and impact in the world.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You say that. I mean, this is about character and integrity, isn't it? When it comes to leadership, there's a famous gentleman called John Kabat-Zinn who tells a story of Buckminster Fuller. I can't say that. Buckminster Fuller, that's right. And he was a visionary architect, and he was quite depressed, and he was very seriously considering suicide. Terrible thing to think that somebody's in that position. But he sat down and he asked himself a question that revolutionized his life. And that question was, what is my job on this planet? What is the need that needs doing that I know something about that probably won't happen unless I take some responsibility for it? So this is going down the thought process you're describing there, isn't it, Sarah? What is it? What is my job on this planet? What am I consciously here to do that actually, if I don't do it, it might not get done? And in which case, I'm probably quite good at it and I need to do it. So, yeah, absolutely. That whole think it's sort of in effect self-effacing, reflecting on actually the person. Why do you think that is so important? You mentioned earlier there about society changing, the way we're looking at the world changing, the ethics of social responsibility. Why is that coming to the fore now in 2023? Why is it so important now?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, it's important to understand that we as humans are collectively on an evolutionary journey. And that does not only mean that we're changing on the external, but internally as well. So, one thing very interesting, actually, my own. That's awakening process started in 2012. And of course, as I started my own business in 2014, I had faced a lot of challenges, both professionally and, on a personal level, to understand why I'm here, what my own values are, what I can bring to the world. And it was very interesting. In that awakening journey, I was reading about Schumann resonance. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but Schumann resonance is a set of spectrum peaks in the extremely low frequency portion of the Earth's electromagnetic spectrum. So all life on Earth is calibrated to the frequency of the planets, which means that everything from our brain waves and biorhythms to our states of consciousness are directly correlated to the Earth frequencies. So the Schumann resonance was, for example, measured and studied at 7 points. I think it was like 83 hertz or something, until 3 years ago when it began to accelerate immensely, and it went up to somewhere in the 15 to 25 hertz level. And I was recently also checking out, how the levels were in the last few months, and on January 31, it was actually reached above 36 hertz, which is insane. It was actually recorded first time in history. And this is a big deal. The Earth is rapidly shifting her vibration. And I'm sure, so you might be wondering, what that has to do with conscious leadership. But it's actually quite correlated. As the Earth itself is raising its vibration, we as humans, our consciousness are also being affected by the changes. So this shows up in our world as, the old way of things shattering, things not that are in alignment of the highest good and the deepest well-being of the planet and people are actually not working anymore. Lots of things coming to the surface to be cleared, to be solved with new ways of leading as well. And we as individuals are, responsible for looking at things differently in today's world. And I really believe that we need to understand that leadership in business really comes down to personal and self-development rather than, to make sure that your team obeys and only delivers. This is, to me, again, is just the beginning of this new world, and where we cannot avoid working on ourselves in every level, and to become more conscious aligned, sentient beings that move in integrity, compassion, as well as abundance, because there's no limit of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to the converted here, Sarah. Obviously, we spent the whole day yesterday talking about this stuff. So absolutely hallelujah, as they say. So if, we like to be quite practical on our sort of workshops and the work that we do at the Nicola Alec Group and the work that you do with Leaps Insights. It's quite practical, isn't it? We like to help our people understand this from their perspective, to understand a bit of the theory, where it's coming from and why it's important, but then actually put that into practice. So what are your personal suggestions to help people on this call, or people that might be listening to the Weekly NRG podcast? What would you want to say to them in terms of if they wanted to start practicing conscious leadership or improving their conscious leadership? What were your personal suggestions for that?
Well, self-development is an unending journey, but becoming a conscious leader is, becoming conscious of our own thoughts, our own beliefs, and how we show up in the world. So this starts with self-work, starts with healing and shadow work and deprogramming all the beliefs that were encoded to us by the society, by the governments, family, friends, and also ourselves, the stories that we also tell ourselves and we make ourselves believe. And that's why we end up showing up or showing reactions to other people. So it's getting rid of all, the layers and baggages that we carry to become more light, so we can shine more brightly. And it's interesting when people also talk about enlightenment, it's actually not reaching somewhere. It's not, raising or going to another level. It's actually getting rid of all the baggages, all the, layers that you have been carrying up until now that needs, more light to come through. And that's what shadow work actually stands for as well. It's allowing more light to come in to your shadow aspects of yourself where you want to work on. So there are lots of practices, there are lots of tools that one can use in their self-development journey. But I do want to say the impact of journaling. I start with that because I think it's very simple and it's very focused. And we also yesterday suggested that to our conscious female leaders who joined the program. So my suggestion is that, having a separate journal for yourself where you can write top 3 things that happened that you were very happy with. And I also like to ask people to write 3 things that they want to improve. It could be things that, you were maybe angry in the traffic, or something happened that triggered you and you responded in an angry way. And it's good to write both aspects, so the good and the bad things that happen. Just keep it simple, write 3 things. And when you start looking back, you will realize certain patterns of, your behavior or emotions that do not bring you forward in life. And once you identify that, so the purpose of journaling is to help you to identify what the patterns are. And then you will be able to work on letting it go and, healing that aspect of yourself. My second recommendation is obviously self-reflection questions. So I always say, you are not your thoughts. And when you start becoming more aware on your day-to-day activities, your self-talk, and how becoming aware on your thoughts will actually help you to working on self-reflection questions that you can ask yourself as well, and that will help you to identify the core beliefs, your thoughts that make you stuck or reach your highest potential as well. So very simple questions. As an example, you can ask yourself, where do I frequently get stuck? It could be in a professional level, it could be on a personal level. And in which situations do you get the most frustrated with your work and the people around you? And another question you can ask yourself is, when are you the most judgmental towards others and why?
Yeah.
My third recommendation is mindfulness and meditation. I practice every day because it helps me to ground. It helps me to go back to my, myself, and to kind of cut myself from the external reality. And these practices will help you to manage stress as well. It will improve your focus, your concentration, and it will cultivate a sense of inner calm. And there are amazing, mindfulness and meditations that you can find on YouTube. Thankfully, we have, all the access right now, to lots of knowledge in the internet. We also, from Nicola yesterday, I realized that for everything you have a book suggestion, which is amazing. It is amazing. It is
today. Yeah, carry on.
amazing. Yeah. So, my next suggestion is, of course, reading and learning more. I'm reading books and attending seminars, workshops, courses on topics of your interest that can help you to expand your knowledge, your skills, and also perspective. And coaching and mentoring. So I think it's so important. Back in the time when I first started my business, I had no idea about the industry I was in, and it took me so much time and so much difficult lessons as well to learn the hard way. And today, I have to mention this to like everyone, including, it's not about having coach and mentoring around business, but it's also having someone that you can talk to. It could be a therapist as well, but it's when you have a coach, it's more like the coach can actually provide you individual guidance and support, and it help you to get accountability of the things that you are facing, or causing yourself, even to help to achieve your goals and become your best version. And yeah, being open to feedbacks is another suggestion, because seeking and accepting feedback from others can help you to gain different perspectives and identify your own blind spots. But it has to be in good communication as well, because unfortunately, most of the time when we get a feedback, even though it could be a positive feedback or a critical feedback, we kind of feel that we are being attacked in that moment, in a sense that we can feel different emotions like anger or not being enough, and that is not going to help us to really hear the other side and where they're coming from. So every conversation we're having, everyone who is giving us feedbacks, we should be open to understand where that feedback is coming from and how you can actually work on that side of you, to improve your performance as well. And networking, that's my last suggestion for now, in terms of building relationships, conscious leadership, and becoming a leader, and working on yourself. Building relationships is so vital, and it will help you to provide individuals with opportunities to learn from each other and gain new perspectives, and also access new career opportunities. You'll never know what's going to come and open up to you in terms of new opportunities, new pathways that you can take.
Sarah, that's fantastic. I'm just going to add a final note to remind people of something you've just said a moment ago in a bit of a summary. Before I do that, I'm just going to ask people if you want to have a think about a question for Sarah. We're going to have a time for a couple of questions, but let me just do a last point. I think that in gardening terms, they call it weeding out, where they basically get rid of some of the top of the tree and they thin it out a little bit. So then the shoots at the bottom of the tree and the roots of the tree can get some light and grow stronger. And I think that point you were making about letting go of something with the shadow work, so that more light can come into your life, more light can come into your personal development. I'll come to you in a second, Gina. I think that's really interesting and important. And it's a great question that I think that if anybody wants to do some work on this straight away today, just have a think about what you can let go of that's not helping you at the moment, that's not moving you forward, that actually will make room for something else to come in. So I'm just going to allow you to speak, Jenna. Bear me a second. Allow to speak. Here we go. You should be able to speak now, unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you. Morning.
Thank you. Morning. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Sarah. Pleasure to be here. And I've loved your series this week. It's been really eye-opening. So thank you very much for organising.
My pleasure.
So my question was really about, I'm sort of looking to, I've had a lot of coaching, mindset work, performance coaching, dating coaching, all of this stuff. It didn't really kick in for me until very recently, where I've basically been absorbing knowledge for several years now, and now I'm starting to put it into practice. And I really, really resonate with everything you just said about releasing the toxic stuff, the stuff that doesn't serve you anymore, and making room for the new, the light, to bring in, new opportunities. And I really believe that once you have a vision and you have an intention and you're doing things in the right direction, universes will, conspire to give you exactly what you want, and it'll throw stuff into your lap. So I really believe in the law of manifestation and things like that. My question was more about, if I want to get into this sort of space where I want to be able to help people that have helped me in the past, and use all my knowledge and my experience to be able to guide people going forward, how do I make sure I stay in the same space I need to be in order to be able to help? Because obviously giving off your energy to others people is draining, right? And you can only got a full cup. Is there any tips and tricks on how you maintain, your cup, basically?
Very good question. I think in the first phases, where not in my professional life, but I was also trying to help and show the light and the right steps to take for in my friends' relationship as well. And I did have that feeling of drained, and because as you say, like, you're giving energy to someone, you're not mentally also thinking about it, but energetically trying to help them. And I found my way, or a way, to close myself. One, I do when I'm doing meditations, I also do shielding meditations. And shielding meditations are basically creating a shield around your energetic field. So anything that is not in the higher vibration and in alignment with love, light, cannot pass through. And I've seen that working a lot. And there's different shielding techniques that you can use. One example I can give, which works great, is imagine the infinity sign. Like number 8. So when you are having a conversation with someone in front of you, you can imagine to draw that infinity line, and imagine that's in lights, bright lights, and put yourself in one of the circles and put the other person in one of the circles. So what you're doing there, for example, is that you are putting yourself in this light and you're putting the other person in the light, and you're creating a shield between you two. So it's not only the other person, dumping their energy onto you, but it's both ways. So both of you are actually protecting yourself to, not to affect each other's energies. So that's one tool that I can suggest. And mentally, I think my process has been difficult because I'm very empathic as well. And everyone, even in organizations I was working at, I was one of the people that everyone came to and talked and, complained or wanted to seek for a solution. And the way I solved that kind of, feeling of draining is when I did not take it as my own experience. So when we're helping others, we should understand and we should affirm that it's not your experience, it's the other person's experience. You're only there to listen, and you are not there to absorb their problems or even to solve their problems,
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jenna. I'm sorry, we're going to have to close that down at that point just because we're running out of time, but a great question. And Jenna, again, if you want to send any messages to Sarah, or anybody listening wants to ask Sarah a question, then please comment in the links, or send a message to myself and Sarah, and we'll get that message to Sarah, and we'll connect you all on LinkedIn.
I will do. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. So let's I hope you'll join me in a virtual round of applause whilst I give Sarah a physical round of applause. Sarah, it's been a pleasure again. I mean, we've literally spent 2 days with each other now, haven't we? In the last 2 days, we've not actually we've not actually been apart for 24 hours. So it's been a pleasure. And I have to say to people listening, Sera is an absolute beam of light. I consider myself to have lots of NRG, which is our brand, but Sera has got some light that you can't describe until you meet the woman. She's a fantastic force of nature. So Sera, again, thank you so much. Now, just for those people listening, just before we finally say goodbye, I just wanted to recommend a book. There was a running joke yesterday that every time anybody said anything, I said, oh, you want to read this book? Because that's really good with regards to that principle. There's a really good book on conscious leadership, which talks about the paradigm of sustainable success, and that is the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership by Jim Delthmeyer, Diane Chapman, and Kaylee Warner-Klemp. So I'll put a link into any sort of conversation around that. I'll put a link into our LinkedIn with regards to that book. You can buy it from all good bookshops, but I'll put a link in there so you know which one I'm talking about. And I think we've had a fantastic week. I hope you'll join me in a round of applause to say thank you to all our three amazing speakers. And Sera's just topped off the week really fantastically there. But listening is one thing. And I want to just finally finish with a quote that hopefully will inspire you, that will influence you to go and be the leader that changes the paradigm. And that quote is a Japanese proverb. And it starts like this: vision without action is a dream. Action without vision is a damn nightmare. I'm sure they didn't use the word damn, but you get my point. Guys, we've learned so much this week with regards to leadership, young leadership, conscious leadership, international leadership. I absolutely applaud you for spending this time thinking about these concepts. But please, 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 one of our values at the Nicola Rowlett Group is to inspire action. So please go out and do something different today. Lead somebody, inspire somebody. Just consider working on yourself for half an hour, but just go and do something, because without the action, the vision is just a dream. And on that note, I bid you a fond farewell for Friday. We're back next month. Next month, we're talking about diversity and inclusion. Watch the LinkedIn for event information. Please come along. It's been a pleasure to know you and to have you on our journey this week. And I'll say goodbye for now. Have a great